All right, this demonstration video is going to pick up with our classic Princess style line demonstrations on the back bodice. So I am going to prepare my workspace here with my back bodice. I'm going to use my selection arrow, the black arrow. I will click on my back bodice and everything highlights the grain line and the text, so I know it's all grouped together. I'm going to go to Object, Menu, and ungroup it. Click away from everything. Now I'm going to get my grain line. I'm going to just move it off to the left for a moment until I am done. Same with my text here. I'm going to move it up to the right and out of the way. My horizontal balance line at the shoulder level, I do not actually need that for these patterns, so I'm going to select it and delete it, get rid of it. One more step here in preparing is to select my back pattern piece. Notice it has a white fill. I need it as a nothing fill. It makes me being able to see my grid lines through the patterns easier, perhaps for some modifications. So with my fill box, I will change that to a nothing fill and click away from it all. Now, using your textbook, you want to check out page 124. This shows you the diagrams and the order of steps in what you're trying to do. I am only showing you how to do those steps using Illustrator and the tools in Illustrator. So that's where we're going to go with this. We need to establish a style line from the inner dart leg of our shoulder dart down to our waist dart. Now this waist, the dart point, is a little bit off on our pattern from what the diagram in the book shows. So I'm going to show you something that's going to take our style line from the dart leg point here to the dart leg down here. We need to cut our dart legs to separate our center back from our side back. And after I've used my scissor tool to cut this anchor point and that one, you can see that the center back is the piece that is highlighted. I'm going to go ahead and get my selection arrow, and I want to make sure that this piece is in the top of my stacking order. I can do that by having the object selected, go to my object menu, go to the arrange part of the menu, and I want to bring that to front. That way when I begin to add on drawing, that one's in the top of the stacking order, and those are the anchor points I'll actually add on to drawing. Using my pen tool, I'm going to actually start at the waist level and picking up to draw onto center back section. And you can see that that becomes highlighted, as well as the mark next to the cursor of the pen is a slash mark, which means I'm going to continue picking up drawing on this path. So one single click, and you can see the kind of pull line in the highlight blue. Coming up to this anchor point, it shows a closed path, but I do not want them as hard corners. So once I get here, I'm going to create a control arm to sort of arc this new style line. I'm going to hold the button down on my mouse and drag, and you can see that even though I'm pulling up to the right with my cursor, my control arm is in the opposite direction and kind of bending that line. I'm going to have to just kind of eyeball what I like as my line. I think this is pretty good and close to what the book diagram looks like. So there we go. I'm going to get my selection tool so I can select away from everything. This now is going to be our center back section. Here we need to make some modifications to our darts, shifting them over to the style line, and then the remainder of the pattern becomes our side back. So next thing we need to do is actually cut the dart point for both the shoulder dart and the waist dart. Use my selection tool to select that dart leg, and I just push delete to get rid of it. I do not need those, but I do need these to kind of shift over towards the new style line in place. So to do that, I'm going to zoom in and use my direct selection tool, and then my keyboard arrows to nudge it over. I don't want to get it right on top of that line, but pretty close to it is going to work for our purposes. Same here for the waist dart point. shifting it over. Close. Now I need to add dart point or anchor points on the new style line about where these points line up. So that's why I did not want these points on the line in my way. And sometimes, depending on your zoom level, you may or may not be able to get on that line. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in closer, get my add anchor point tool, and get on the style line. You can tell it by highlights what that is. I'm going to zoom out. Now I have a style line, or I'm sorry, an anchor point here and an anchor point here. And so what I want to do in between those two anchor points actually is put a set of notches with my segment tool. Actually, I'm going to zoom in just a little bit. My segment line tool. This is just one single line. Click, hold, and drag. So one across here. There we go. And another one across here. There we go. There's my double notches. They're about the same size. I could have drawn one and made a copy and moved it. Both of those are same ways of getting there. Zooming out just a little bit. All right, one more zoom out. There we go. Now I need to just use my direct select arrow so that when I draw this little gathering container, I am getting the points for both my notches and the segment between that anchor point and that anchor point. That is what is actually in my selection. I am going to command copy, and then I'm going to command paste in front, Control F. And now you can see what's highlighted is what I wanted to copy. So I'm going to do that using my direct selection tool and holding down my shift key. I'm going to add to my selection, drawing a bounding box to collect all of these points around my armhole, the shoulder, down the sides, the waist, but I didn't quite get all my points. I need to continue adding by holding the shift key and singularly selecting some of these points. May need to actually zoom in some more to collect the points for these. I'm trying to get these anchor points. Can you see the white ones here? There we go. And holding shift key to select that. Now I'm going to zoom out. All the points are selected that I want to actually move and become my side back. By holding down on my shift key at this point and using my keyboard arrows, I will move everything to the right and away from center back. Shift key just allows it to jump and move 10 points rather than a single point at a time with each arrow tap. Now, let's talk about this a little bit. I copied the segment between these anchor points on the style line and my notches because I want this to be able to match to that. All right, that's why I needed to copy and paste in front, keep those selected, add the rest of the side of the back as my selection, and separate the two. Now, in order to seamlessly put on my seam allowance, I need my side back to be one closed shape. So when I click on that, notice it does not put that part in with the selection. Those are two separate paths. Whereas when I click on center back, it is one continuous path, a closed path. So I need to check and make sure that these points are joined. Remember, you can use your join tool, which is what I demonstrated in the last demonstration video, but I can also join by using my direct select. Click and drag around the 2 points I want to join together, making sure they're the ones selected. Object, I can go to path and I can average them first, putting both points in the same space, one stacked on top of the other. Then I go to object, path, then I join. Now they are 1 point. I'm going to click away from everything and then click and drag to collect these 2 points. I'm going to do the same thing. So either way, the selection of the points, average, then join commands, or using your join tool are your two options that you can do. The join tool leaves it as two separate points where when you use your object menu, path, average, and then join, it combines them as one single point. Now then, one of the last things I probably want to do is true these points up somewhat, making sure that, see, I don't want a hard corner here, so I can click and actually use my shift key, I mean not my shift, my anchor point key, tool, and click and drag. I need to make sure I'm not twisting my lines with my control arms, but what I can do is just give those a nice arc to them so they're much smoother. All right, we're getting places now. I have got my center back and my side back. Got my notches in place, smoothed out my lines. Next thing I want to do is select my closed path here. Object, path. Offset path will allow me to put my seam allowance on there. It defaults as 0.5 because that's the last thing I typed in there. I'm going to go ahead and click that. If you just recently reopened your file, you may need to retype in 0.5 for ½ inch. I'm going to select the inner line and change that to my dashed line because that's my stitch line. Center back will leave our seam allowance on the center back, allowing for a zipper or something to go into that garment piece. All right, and now checking that it looks like my side back is one closed path. We'll find out when I go to put the offset path around it. And correct. If it was an open path, I'd also have a line on the inside and have to figure out which corners were still open. This worked just fine. Selecting my inner line, I will change that to my stitch line. Now the last thing I kind of want to do, or it's not really the last, it's getting closer to the last steps. I want to get my notches selected and, come on, I just need to move them over to my seam allowance on each of my pieces. Trying to do so, kind of keeping them somewhat in line with where they were. And don't forget the ones down here on the armhole. There we go. And zooming on out. Just a few more little finishing touches. We want to change the fill on our cutting line out the outside of our seam allowance to a solid white fill. Same thing on my side back. Then my grain line, I can shift that and bring that on over. Now, notice that I actually don't really see it right now, and that's because it is buried behind that. I don't see my little arrows on the end. So with it, that object selected, I'm going to arrange, bring it to the front. Now I can see my arrows. I also need one for my side back. I don't need to redraw it if I just do my Alt key and click, hold, drag, and bring a copy of it over for my side back. Same thing for my text. I can do an Alt key down as I drag, and again, it is in the back, so we're going to arrange, bring it to front. Now I can see the words, and I want to edit those words. This will be my side back, and what did we have? Cut 2 when I cut that out of fabric. And then this bodice back, whoop, didn't want to do that, undo, make sure I get in the center of my text. Again, it seems to disappear, it's still there, it's just in the back of the stacking order, bring to front, and go in and edit my type, center back bodice. And in this case, I will cut 2, one for the left and right sides with my seam allowance down center back. That brings us to the end of this tutorial. Let me just move, oops, get out of my editing mode on that. There we go. You will finish this up and turn it in. Oh, looks like I got to go back and move these notches out to the edges just like I showed you there. That's fine. If you like, you can also select around everything and group those. Once you have done all your modifications, then it's very easy to click and move all pieces together. But this is what you will be completing and turning in for your assignment for Style Lines this week. Good luck, and if you have any questions, please let me know.